Oh, if I'm live. Am I live? I think I'm live. I'm coming back. Hello. Welcome to Volume 2, Chapter 13. This is my new setup. I have a new setup because yesterday morning, before my class started, I was like, I don't have a Zoom link to this class. So I emailed the head of the department and was like, hey, can I have a Zoom link? And he's like, oh, it was sent out yesterday. I'm like, oh, whoops, I thought that was a Zoom link for a different class. So I clicked on it and it was like, this is the class name. And when I looked at it, I thought it was the Zoom link for a different class. So I was like, I don't need to read this email. But there was a little tiny bit that was like, read more. Patricia, oh my goodness. Wow, 3 people? What happened? Is it because it's Saturday? I scratch my chin at you. So I was like, oh, snaps. That's not what I thought it was. This is really a problem. I don't want to close it though because it looks so disgusting. I look so bad with those are my roommates. With just this thing. But anyways, so they were like, I clicked the thing and it was like, here are 5 things you need before class. I started reading this email at 10:30. Class starts at 1, and it's like, you need a monitor, a mouse, 3 different types of software, and a project. And I was like, well, I have one of those things. So I had to like yeet on over to Best Buy and get a monitor and a mouse and download all the stuff. So this is my new little friend, which I'm not using right now because there's no reason. But anyways, that means that you can see all of my bed and all of my roommate's bed for the entirety of class, which is, I don't know. I don't love having people, like, normally I don't show anybody my room ever. Like, I'm very rarely in my room with people. So it's weird having, like, classmates who I don't know that well, just like, yeah, that's where I sleep. Every night, that's where I go to sleep. And then I have this monitor, which I feel like is staring at me, so I have to cover it with my little scarf every night. But that was my tale of woe yesterday. And then they were trying to teach me how to do software. And of course, they're trying to teach you how to do software on your computer. They can't see my computer, but they're trying to teach me how to do things. And I am good at not doing things. I'm great at not doing things. So at one point I was just like uncontrollably laughing on mute. And I also I show everything on my face. So I'll be like, and the professor will be like, Sophie, you look concerned. And it's like, no, I just destroyed my luck beyond repair. I'll be okay, but I can't do anything right now. Oh my God, it's a party today. We got 4 people. I haven't had 4 people since Wuthering Heights. This is exciting. But yeah, that's what I did yesterday. And I was, Patricia knows, I was emotionally compromised after class for reasons unknown. Probably shouldn't have put that on the internet. Hoopsie! She's living a chaotic lifestyle right now. I just had really good fried rice for lunch. Really excited about that. Okay, let's do this. What happened yesterday? I don't know. Who knows what happened? It wasn't yesterday. It was the day before. Okay. Dane was here. Did they? Okay. So, oh my gosh, Dane. So what happened yesterday was Papa Tilney was like, it's so boring here. I don't want to bore you, Catherine. Let's do something. And Catherine's like, please don't make a fuss over me. But also like, yeah, we kind of do the same shit every day. And so he's like, let's go visit Henry's house. And Catherine's like, there's nothing I would love more than to see my future home. I mean, Henry's house. Yeah. So they go to Henry's house and she's like, this is the cutest house I've ever seen in my entire life. I love this room better than any other room in the whole world. That cottage is super cute. Like everything is beautiful. I'm like overwhelmed by how perfect this house is for me. And Henry is, I don't know, playing it cool. Who knows? Who knows? This is like I can't get a read on Henry. He's either just like a nice guy or he's in love with her and also can't talk about it. We've all been there, ladies. um, okay. And in the next chapter, she finally gets a letter from Isabella. And Isabella is like, hey, it's so crazy what happened. Like, Captain Tilney is such a bad dude. Like, I can't even believe he was interested in me. And, like, I don't know how your brother got things, like, misconstrued, but, like, can you please tell him that, like, he's wrong? And, like, I never had any feelings for anyone else. Like, your brother was always number one in my heart. And Catherine's like, this right here, this is bullshit. And everybody else is like, yeah, just don't respond. And she's like, I'm not going to respond. And that's where we left off. Um, in Northanger Abbey. So let's see what happens today as we reach chapter 13. Oh, sometimes I think, you know? Sometimes I see things. Northanger Abbey, Volume 2, Chapter 13. Aw, bye, Patricia. I love you. It's great to hear from you. Have a good sleep, sweet dreams. Okay. It's just you and me again, Dane. On the road again. Okay, let's do it. Northanger Abbey, Volume 2, Chapter 13. Soon after this, the general found himself obliged to go to London for a week, and he left Northanger earnestly regretting that any necessity should rob him even for an hour of Miss Morland's company, and anxiously recommending the study of her comfort and amusement to his children as their chief object in his absence. It's true, we do have fun, Dane. His departure gave Catherine the first experimental conviction that a loss may sometimes be That a loss may be sometimes a gain. The happiness with which their time now passed, every employment voluntary. That's not how you say voluntary. Every laugh indulged, every meal a scene of ease and good humor, walking where they liked and when they liked, their hours, pleasures, and fatigues at their own command, made her thoroughly sensible of the restraint with which the general's presence had imposed, and most thankfully feel their present release from it. Such ease and such delights made her love the place and the people more and more every day, and had it not been for a dread of its soon becoming expedient to leave the one, and an apprehension of not being equally beloved by the other, she would at each moment of each day have been perfectly happy. But she was now in the 4th week of her visit, before the general came home. The 4th week would be turned, and perhaps it might seem an intrusion if she stayed much longer. This was a painful consideration whenever it occurred, and eager to get rid of such a weight on her mind, she very soon resolved to speak to Eleanor about it at once, propose her going away, and be guided in her conduct by the manner in which her proposal might be taken. Aware that if she gave herself much time, she might feel it difficult to bring forward so unpleasant a subject, she took the first opportunity of being suddenly alone with Eleanor, and of Eleanor's being in the middle of a speech about something very different, to start forth her obligation of going away very soon. Eleanor looked and declared herself much concerned. She had hoped for the pleasure of her company for a much longer time, had been misled perhaps by her wishes to suppose that a much longer visit had been promised, and could not but think that if Mr. and Mrs. Morland were aware of the pleasure it was to her to have her there, they would be too generous to hasten her return. Catherine explained, "Oh, as to that, Papa and Mamma were in no hurry at all. As long as she was happy, they would always be satisfied." Sorry, sometimes Jane Austen does this thing where it's like, who's texting me? Is it Patricia? Patricia. Oh gosh, where was I? She does this thing where she records a line of dialogue, but records it as like a thought in the past from Jane Austen's perspective. So like it'll be like, for example, Eleanor's line of dialogue, which is like, Then why might she ask in such a hurry to leave them? Which that's how the line is written, but like how is Eleanor would have said it is, then why might I ask in such a hurry herself to leave them? And it's just like weird because I'm like, do I do it in the voice? Do I not do it in the voice? I think I'll do it. I don't know. It's weird. I just usually don't do it in the voice. Um, then why might she ask in such a hurry to leave them? Oh, because she had been there so long. Nay, if you can use such a word, I can urge you no farther, if you think it long. Oh no, I do not indeed. For my own pleasure I could stay with you as long again. And it was directly settled that, till she had, her leaving them was not even to be thought of. In having this cause of uneasiness so pleasantly removed, the force of the other was likewise weakened. The kindness, the earnestness of Eleanor's manner in pressing her to stay, and Henry's gratified look on being told that her stay was determined, were such sweet proofs of her importance with them as left her only just so much solicitude, as the human mind can never do comfortably without. She did, almost always, believe that Henry loved her, and quite always that his father and sister loved and even wished her to belong to them. And believing so far, her doubts and anxieties were merely sportive irritations. Henry was not able to obey his father's injunction of remaining wholly at Northanger in attendance on the ladies during his absence in London, the engagements of his curate at Woodston obliging him to leave them on Saturday for a couple nights. His loss was not now what it had been while the general was at home. It lessened their gaiety, but did not ruin their comfort, and the two girls, agreeing in occupation and improving in intimacy, found themselves so well sufficient for the time to themselves that it was 11 o'clock, rather a late hour at the Abbey, before they quitted the supper room on the day of Henry's departure. They had just reached the head of the stairs when it seemed, as far as the thickness of the walls would allow them to judge, that a carriage was driving up to the door, and the next moment confirmed the idea by the loud noise of the house bell. After the first perturbation of surprise had passed away, in a good heavens, what can be the matter? It was quickly decided by Eleanor to be her eldest brother, whose arrival was often as sudden, if not quite so unseasonable, and accordingly she hurried down to welcome him. Catherine walked on to her chamber, making up her mind as well as she could to further acquaintance with Captain Tilney, and comforting herself under the unpleasant impression his conduct had given her, and the persuasion of his being by far too fine a gentleman to approve of her, that at least they should not meet under such circumstances as would make their meeting materially painful. She trusted he would never speak of Miss Thorpe, and indeed, as he must by this time be ashamed of the part he had acted, there could be no danger of it, and as long as all mention of Bath scenes were avoided, she thought she could behave to him very civilly. In such considerations time passed away, and it was certainly in his favour that Eleanor should be so glad to see him, and to have so much to say, for half an hour was almost gone since his arrival, and Eleanor did not come up. At that moment, Catherine thought she heard her step in the gallery, and listening for its continuance, but all was silent. Scarcely, however, had she convicted her fancy of error, when the noise of something moving close to her door made her start. It seemed as if someone was touching the very doorway, and in another moment a slight motion of the lock proved that some hand must be on it. She trembled a little at the idea of any one's approaching so cautiously, but resolving not to be again overcome by trivial appearances of alarm, or misled by a raised imagination, she stepped quietly forward and opened the door. Eleanor, and only Eleanor, stood there. Catherine's spirits, however, were tranquilized but for an instant, for Eleanor's cheeks were pale and her manner greatly agitated. Though evidently intending to come in, it seemed an effort to enter the room, and a still greater to speak when there. I'm so excited. Catherine, supposing some uneasiness on Captain Tilney's account, could only express her concern by silent attention, obliged her to be seated, rubbed her temples with lavender water, and hung over her with affectionate solicitude. My dear Catherine, you must not indeed, were Eleanor's first connected words. I am quite well. This kindness distracts me. I cannot bear it. I come to you on such errand. Excuse me. Errand? To me? How shall I tell you? Oh, how shall I tell you? A new idea darted now into Catherine's mind, and turning as pale as her friend, she exclaimed, "'Tis a messenger from Woodston." "You are mistaken, indeed," returned Eleanor, looking at her most compassionately. "It is no one from Woodston. It is my father himself." Her voice faltered, and her eyes were turned to the ground as she mentioned his name. His unlooked-for return was enough itself to make Catherine's heart sink. For a moment, and for a few moments, she, oh my God. No, never apologize. I'm happy to have you here. Um, and for a few, his unlooked-for return was enough in itself to make Catherine's heart sink, and for a few moments she hardly supposed there were anything worse to be told. She said nothing, and Eleanor, endeavoring to collect herself and speak with firmness, but with eyes still cast down, soon went on. "You are too good, I am sure, to think the worse of me for the part I am obliged to perform. I am indeed the most unwilling messenger, after what has so lately passed, so lately been settled between us. How joyfully, how thankfully on my side. As to your continuing here, I hope for many, many weeks longer. How can I tell you that your kindness is not to be accepted, and that the happiness your company has hitherto given us is to be repaid by— But I must not trust myself with words. My dear Catherine, we are to part. My father has recollected an engagement that takes our whole family away on Monday. We are going to Lord Longtown's, near Hereford, for a fortnight. Explanation and apology are equally impossible. I cannot attempt either." "My dear Eleanor," cried Catherine, suppressing her feelings as well as she could, "do not be so depressed. It was distressed. My dear Eleanor, do not be so distressed. A second engagement must give way to a first. I am very, very sorry we are to part. So soon and so suddenly, too, but I am not offended. Indeed, I am not. I can finish my visit here, you know it, at any time. Or I hope you will come to me. Can you, when you return from this Lord's, come to Fullerton?" "It will not be in my power, Catherine." "Come when you can, then." Eleanor made no answer. "What's going on?" "Something's happening." And Catherine's thoughts recurring something more directly interesting, she added, thinking aloud, "Monday. So soon as Monday. And you all go?" "Well, I am certain I shall be able to take leave, however. I need not go till just before you do, you know. Do not be distressed, Eleanor. I can go on Monday very well. My father and mother's having no notice of it is very little consequence. The general will send a servant with me, I dare say, half the way, and then I shall soon be at Salisbury, and then I am only 9 miles from home." "Oh, Catherine, were it settled so, it would be somewhat less intolerable, though in such common attentions you would have received but half what you ought. But how can I tell you? Tomorrow is fixed for your leaving us, and not even the hour is left to your choice. The very carriage is ordered, and will be here at 7 o'clock, and no servant will be offered you. What's going on?" Catherine sat down, breathless and speechless. "I could hardly believe my senses when I— what? When I heard— oh wait, no, must be what's her face? Eleanor. I could hardly believe my senses when I heard it. No displeasure, no resentment you can feel at this moment, however justly great, can be more than myself. And I must not talk of what I felt. Oh, that I could suggest anything in extenuation. Good God, what will your father and mother say, after courting you for the protection of real friends, to this? Almost double distance from your home, to have you driven out of the house, without the considerations of even decent civility. Dear, dear Catherine, in being up the bearer of such message, I seem guilty myself of all its insult, yet I trust you will acquit me, for you must have been long enough in this house to see that I am but a normal mistress of it, that my real power is nothing." "Have I offended the general?" said Catherine in a faltering voice. "Alas, for my feelings as a daughter, all that I know, all that I answer for, that you can have given him no just cause of offense. He certainly is greatly, very greatly discomposed. I have seldom seen him more so. His temper is not happy, and something has now occurred to ruffle it in an uncommon degree. Some disappointment, some vexation, which just at this moment seems important, but which I can hardly suppose you to have any concern in, for how is it possible? Maybe I don't know. They really are just calling her an Uber and like there's the door. um It was with pain that Catherine could speak at all, and it was only for Eleanor's sake that she attempted it. "I'm sure," that I'm very sorry if I have offended him. Um, okay, here's a wild theory. I think Captain Tilney and Isabella got married, and maybe Isabella has like spun some sort of like whack lie to discredit Catherine for some reason. Um, I'm very sorry if I've offended him. It was the last thing I would willingly have done. Do not be unhappy, Eleanor. An engagement you know must be kept. I am only sorry it was not recollected sooner that I might have written home. But it is of very little consequence. I earnestly hope that to your real safety it will be of none, but to everything else it is of the greatest consequence to comfort, appearance, propriety to your family, to the world. Were your friends the Allens still in Bath, you might go to them with comparative ease. A few hours would take you there, but a journey of 70 miles, to be taken post by you at your age, alone, unattended. Oh, the journey is nothing. Do not think about that. And if we are to part a few hours sooner or later, you know makes no difference. I can be ready by 7. Let me be called in time." Eleanor saw that she wished to be alone, and believing it better for each that they should avoid any further conversation, now left her with, "I shall see you in the morning." Catherine's swelling heart needed relief. In Eleanor's presence, friendship and pride had equally restrained her tears, but no sooner was she gone than they burst forth in torrents. Turned away from the house in such a way, without any reason that could justify any apology that could atone for the abruptness, the rudeness, nay, the insolence of it. Henry at a distance, not able even to bid him farewell. Every hope, every expectation from him suspended at least, and who could say how long? Who could say when they might meet again? And all this by such a man as General Tilney, so polite, so well bred, and heretofore so particularly fond of her. It was as incomprehensible as it was mortifying and grievous. Maybe Isabella was like, "Oh, don't you know that like she's just after Henry for his money? She's just trying to like steal your money." It's so sad to like think that, you know, she had such like a good guy as you like under her spell. And then the general was like, "What?" Sorry, the spirit of a chicken took over me for a moment. Anyways, where was I? Okay. It was incomprehensible as it was mortifying and grievous. From what it could arise and where it would end were considerations of equal perplexity and alarm. The manner in which it was done so grossly uncivil, or allowing her even the appearance of choice, as the time or mode of her travelling, of 2 days, the earliest fixed on, and of that almost the earliest hour, as if resolved to have her gone before he was stirring in the morning, that he might not be obliged to even see her. What could all this mean but an intentional affront? By some means or other she must have had the misfortune to offend him. Eleanor had wished to spare her from so painful a notion, but Catherine could not believe it possible that any injury or any misfortune could provoke such ill will against a person not connected, or at least not supposed to be connected with it. No, I'm not, Dane. I do not know which car commercial to which you refer. Um, Heavily passed the night. Sleep or repose that deserved the name of sleep was out of the question. That room in which her disturbed imagination had tormented her on the first arrival was again the scene of agitated spirits and unquiet slumbers. Yet how different now the source of her inquietude from what it had been then! How mournfully superior in reality and substance! Her anxiety had foundation in fact, her fears in probability, and with a mind so occupied in the contemplation of actual and natural evil, the solicitude of her situation, the darkness of her chamber, the antiquity of the building were felt and considered without the smallest emotion, and though the wind was high and often produced strange and sudden noises throughout the house, she heard it all as she lay awake hour after hour with curiosity or terror. Soon after 6, Eleanor entered her room, eager to show attention or give assistance where it was possible, but very little remained to be done. Catherine had not loitered. She was almost dressed, and her packing almost finished. The possibility of some conciliatory message from the general occurred to her as his daughter appeared. What so natural as that anger should pass away and repentance succeeded? And she only wanted to know how far, after what had passed, an apology might properly be received by her. But the knowledge would have been less useless here. It was not called for. Neither clemency nor dignity was put to the trial. Eleanor brought no message. Very little passed between them on meeting. Each found her greatest safety in silence, and a few and trivial were the sentences exchanged while they remained upstairs, Catherine in busy agitation, completing her dress, and Eleanor with more goodwill than experience intent upon filling the trunk. When everything was done, they left the room, Catherine lingering only half a minute behind her friend to throw a parting glance on every well-known, cherished object, and went down to the breakfast parlor, where breakfast was prepared. She tried to eat, as well to save herself from the pain of being urged, as to make her friend comfortable, but she had no appetite and could not swallow many mouthfuls. The contrast between this and her last breakfast in that room gave her fresh misery and strengthened her distaste for everything before her. It was not 24 hours ago since they had met there to the same repast, but in circumstances how different. Hold on, I'll say it at the end. With what cheerful ease, what happy though false security had she then looked around her, enjoying everything present and fearing little in future beyond Henry's going to Woodston for a day. Happy, happy breakfast. For Henry had been there. Henry had sat by her and helped her. Eat breakfast? These reflections were long indulged undisturbed by any address from her companion, who sat as deep in thought as herself, and the appearance of the carriage, which was the first thing to startle and recall them to the present moment. Catherine's colour rose at the sight of it, and the indignity with which she was treated striking at that instant on her mind with peculiar force, made her, for a short time, sensible only of resentment. Eleanor seemed now impelled to resolution and speech. Here's my thought. So I feel like this is not Catherine's fault. Like if I was in this situation having an anxiety attack, I would be like, odds are this is not my fault. Like, this is not on me. This is not about me. Like, and that's taken years of therapy to get to, which obviously poor Catherine does not have access to. But like my therapy, the side of me that's been through therapy and like nudged it is like when something like this happens, like it's not about you. Like something else is going on and the family doesn't want to like let you know. But the anxiety part of me is like, yeah, it's about me. It's about me. And like, I don't know. I'm just like trying to call it because obviously like this is mostly from Catherine's perspective. But I don't know. I wanna see. I hope this isn't, I mean, that feels like the Jane Austen resolution is like, this is not about her at all. But I don't know. I'm nervous. All right. Eleanor seemed now impelled into resolution and speech. You must write to me, Catherine, she cried. You must let me hear from you as soon as possible. Till I know you to be safe at home, I shall not have an hour's comfort. For one letter, at all risks, all hazards, I must entreat. Let me have the satisfaction of knowing that you are safe at Fullerton, and have found your family well, and then, till I can ask for your correspondence as I ought to do, I will not expect more. Direct me to Lord Longtown's, and I must ask it under cover to Alice. What? Direct to me at Lord Longtown's, and I must ask it under cover to Alice. Oh my God. No, Eleanor, if you are not allowed to receive a letter from me, I am sure I had better not write. There can be no doubt of my getting home safe. What? What's happening? Oh my god! Something's happening. I'm excited, but I'm terrified. Um, because she's not allowed. Is it that she's not allowed to write to her, or is it the family is like going undercover? I don't know. Okay. Eleanor only replied, I cannot wonder at your feelings. I will not importune you. I will trust to your own kindness of heart when I am at a distance from you. But this, with a look of sorrow accompanying it, was enough to melt Catherine's pride in a moment, and she instantly said, Oh, Eleanor, I will write to you indeed. There was yet another point which Miss Tilney was anxious to settle, though somewhat embarrassed in speaking of. It had occurred to her that after so long an absence from home, Catherine might not be provided with money enough for the expenses of her journey, and upon suggesting it to her with the most affectionate offers of accommodation, it proved to be exactly the case. Catherine had never thought on the subject till that moment, but upon examining her purse was convinced that but for this kindness of her friend, she might have been turned from the house without even the means of getting home, and the distress in which she must have thereby involved, filling the minds of both, scarcely another word was said by either during the time of their remaining together. Short, however, was that time. The carriage was soon announced to be ready, and Catherine instantly rising, a long and affectionate embrace supplied the place of language in bidding each other adieu, and as they entered the hall, unable to leave the house without some mention of one whose name had not yet been spoken by either, she paused a moment, and with quivering lips just made it intelligible that she left her kind remembrance for her absent friend. But with this approach his name ended all possibility of restraining her feelings, and hiding her face as well as she could with her handkerchief, she darted across the hall, jumped into the chaise, and in a moment was driven from the door. This is crazy. I don't know what's happening. Okay, but we have to read the next chapter tomorrow. Oh, I'm so intrigued. I'm so intrigued. Now I kind of do think it's about Catherine. My anxiety is taking control. She's taking the wheel. Dude, I would be shitting bricks if this happened to me. Bricks would be coming out of my butt. I'd be so distressed. I can't the fact my anxiety would be like 6 cups of coffee level anxiety. Like, wow, I'm getting secondhand anxiety for her. My other thought was when they were talking about hugging. I'm not a very physical touchy person, but I'm usually feel weird. I'm like, am I supposed to be hugging you now? Like, what's the social etiquette towards hugs? And I when we were all leaving UCLA, I decided to go home overnight, and then I left. And you didn't really get to say goodbye to any of your friends, you know? But that night that I left, one of the girls in DKA was giving people little gifts that she had planned, and she came over and it was right as things were starting to get crazy, but she gave me the best hug. And I remember that hug. That was my goodbye to UCLA hug, and I didn't know it, and she was the only one I got to really say goodbye to. I know, right? There's been times when I've been talking to my friend distanced, and I want to hug you, but I can't. I would hug you normally right now because we're talking about something distressing, but we can't touch. So it's just that. I don't know. I'm just looking forward to being able to feel weird about should I hug you right now or not, and then hugging anyways. Patricia's really good at that. Patricia's really good at making me hug people, for specifically her, because I'm ready to scoot out of any situation. Patricia always makes me hug her. I miss Patricia and y'all. But that's my little sad thought for today. So value your hugs. This is a reminder to always value the hugs that you get. Because someday you might not be able to hug people. So yeah, That's all. I hope this was my first week of classes. I hope that y'all's classes are going okay. When I say week, I mean I had one 4-hour class where I sat here and sweated all 4 hours. Okay, I'm gonna check off. I will be in tomorrow at 3 to read another thrilling chapter to see what's happening. Okay, goodbye, my dear friends. I wish you safety and virtual hugs. See you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. It was nice to have people, lots of people. Okay, okay. Goodbye.